report to you that I was able to assemble 52 stakeholders in this community. So you're talking about professor from Duke, Durham Tech, commissioner, business community, parents, everybody was there to be able to work on this strategic plan. Very comprehensive plan, and if you want to be knowledgeable about our plan, it's available. If you go to our website, dpsnc.net, you'll be able to find a copy of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan has 5 priorities with specific, what we call SMART goals, with strategies how to get to our desired outcome. So I'm very pleased. It's been really 3 years since we're implementing our strategic plan, and we've seen some great results prior to COVID. When I came to DPS, it was pretty much close to where the state board of education wanted to take over 2 of our schools. For those folks that are really tuned with DPS, we've done really well in the academic year 2018-19. I came in where we have about 53 schools. 10 of our schools, they were F schools, level F schools. And at the end of the first year, we're able to cut it down to only one F school. So we only have 1 F school out of 10 since my arrival at DPS. Again, pandemic came, and then we're not able to really have a good data to report out to our community. And also, my first year as we did work, we were able to implement our strategic plan. DPS has been able to grow with a student enrollment, almost about 500 students. That's the highest growth we've seen in the last 5 years, because in the 5 years previous to my time, DPS were just declining. So we're very pleased to see that our families, our community were supporting DPS, and they start sending their babies to us. So we're very pleased with the plan that is in our strategic plan. We hope as we're going through this pandemic, as we're gonna recover, we should be able to go and follow that upward trajectory as far educating our student and reaching the full potential. So the pandemic hit, as you all know, DPS was not really prepared to be able to educate our students like any other school system, most school system across the nation. We did not have enough technology, adequate technology to be able to address the needs of our students via remote learning. Thank you to our community business partners that they were able to chip in and support us. And we were able to buy 20,000 new Chromebooks to add to the 11 or 12,000 that we had. That got us to the point where every child, every student at DPS was able to receive a Chromebook. So we became one-to-one, every student with a device. And with the support of the federal government, the funds that we're able to receive, we're also able to provide hotspot to every student that needed internet connection. So while we're going through the pandemic, none of our students that really needed support when it comes to computer or hotspot, they had any concern, we're able to address all their needs. And moving forward for next year, all our students, they're gonna maintain their Chromebooks, and they're also going to have a hotspot. As you all know, we're able to shut down our district since March. We're one of the few, I think one of the first that was able to make that call even before governor made that call statewide. So we listened to our doctors in the community, our experts. The advisors said this virus is coming through, it's not safe. It's good for you guys to be able to close your doors. And we're able to make that courageous decision. So with that, pretty much everybody has followed suit, and then we're able to close for a year. But I'll tell you this, for that particular year, it was really tough. Not only for us not being able to see our students, but it was also tough for our parents to be able to educate the kids at home. It was really a challenging year for all of us. And we had situations where students as well as staff, they have suffered really mental breakdown just to be home. So that was not a really ideal situation because our school, our public schools was not designed for folks to be educated remotely. Around February of this year or March, we're able to make another courageous decision to be able to open our schools. But at the same time, we also gave our families opportunities. They really wanted to stay remote. They were able to keep their babies at home. We did the best we could, and our teachers, they were very stressed to be able to teach remote and at the same time teaching in person. It was really a tough year for all of us. So moving forward, we're very fortunate that we're able to receive funds from federal government. Funds. DPS has been able to receive about $150 million for the next 3 years. So with that, we're able to work with our students to transition them during the summer programming. So in the past, we'll have somewhere around 500, 800 students in the summer programming. But this time we had almost about 7,000 students, which equal approximately to 25% of our students came in person. So I felt really good about that transition because as we're gonna open up schools next week, some of our students, they were able to come back in person. So that's really helped with mental, social needs as well. We have few of our schools that's been open already, our early colleges and what we call specialties high schools. We have 4, they've been open already. And we also have our year-round schools that's been open as well. Things are going well, but things are not perfect. As we're dealing with COVID, Delta variants in the community, we're also dealing with those situations in our schools as well. But we are very resilient. We are very committed. We know that remote learning is not going to be the solution, but we're going to do the best we can to keep our students in person with all the protocols that we have received from North Carolina School Kit that's guiding us, making sure that every student is masking, and we're following all those protocols to make sure that our babies and as well as our staff, they are going to be safe. But I'll say this to our community, it's not going to be perfect. We're going to have cases. We have had some cases, but we just hope that we're not going to have clusters in our campuses. So I'll make a few other remarks here before we'll let you guys ask questions. So the challenge now for us is pretty much vaccination. I know folks have different way of looking at vaccinations, but we are really asking, we are encouraging our staff as well as students 12 and up to be vaccinated. That's a campaign that our school system cannot do it alone. We need a faith-based community. We need businesses. We need our elected official, everybody to step in to be able to help in that campaign. This is what scientists are telling us. The more of us are really vaccinated, that's the best way we're going to keep everyone safe. If we really want to keep our doors open, our schools open, we have to encourage folks to be vaccinated. And if that does not happen, so what's going to happen if we start having a lot of cases, a lot of pressure from coming to superintendent, close your buildings and all that, and that's going to impact the whole community. As you know, when we close schools, parents cannot go to work, businesses, they're not going to be able to function because parents cannot go to work. So it's going to be hard for everybody. When the school is open, that's open up the economy as well. So we hope we're going to stay open so we can continue really progressing and opening up our economy. So it's going to take everybody's effort. Another play that I'm going to ask to our health officials to make sure that we have testing access in our community. I think there is a neighboring district here where if you go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you can take a test anytime. So I hope Durham, we're going to be really progressive enough to make sure that we have those testing opportunities. As our school is going to open, we're going to have a lot of cases, and we want to make sure that those tests are available to our students as well to our parents. So we hope we're going to stay open, but we also been able to give opportunity to those families that really wanted the kids to stay home to learn in remote learning. So we have started a school that we call Ignite Online Academy that has been approved by our state Board of Education as a school. So we have roughly about 750 students that have signed up from K to 12. Unfortunately, we've been able to close the door for that particular school because we have to make sure that we have staffing to be able to address the needs of those students. But wherever we would like for the kids to be able to sign up for Ignite Academy, so they're going to be on the waiting list until they're going to be seats open for the kids. So pretty much that's what I wanted to present to you today. This is what I'll tell our staff tomorrow as we're going to have our convocation. It's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a challenging year. But what is the alternative? The alternative is to be home, remote learning, which means we're going to be able to shut down the country again. So that's not the best option, but we're going to do the best we can, protecting one another by getting folks vaccinated, by following all the toolkits that we have available as far as safety is concerned, and making all the testing available, COVID testing available, so that we'll be able to control the spread of the disease as quickly as possible. It's going to take community effort. Last year, we're able to feed our students. We're able to feed our community while we're closed. It took pretty much the whole community to step in and be able to help to make sure that nobody was hungry as we're going through this pandemic. I just want to say thank you for everything that you do, one way or the other, supporting our students as well as our families. So I'm open for your questions.
Thank you. Chip, do you want to add anything before we open up some questions for Dr. Mubenga?
Sure, happy to do that. Although, usually the opening act's supposed to warm up for the star. So I'm happy to speak after the boss. Just wanted to share that I have linked in the chat our A to Z page on district COVID response that all of you should feel free to take a look at. We will revise it as it goes on as we get different guidance from the state. We know that the state has been on a path toward reopening all North Carolina schools, and we are coming back to school at a more uncertain time than it felt like it was going to be even a month ago. We will continue to listen to our families. We will continue to share information with our families and to be as transparent as possible. We've reinstated our data dashboard so that people can see our cases on a weekly basis. We cannot control the COVID-19 virus or the Delta variant ourselves. We have to encourage vaccinations, as Dr. Mubenga said. We have to require masks, and we will be universally requiring masks in our schools, which is a decision that I wish more districts in North Carolina were brave enough to take on. Durham is proud. Durham is different. Durham is a trailblazer. We are not afraid to talk with our communities about the needs of our students, the challenges of reopening our schools, but also the needs for our students to have access to safe in-person instruction. We need to re-engage our students, and my role at the district is to keep banging that drum and to keep helping the district articulate that and listen to our constituents. Thank you very much for inviting Dr. Mubenga here, and I'm happy to help him answer questions as he directs me.
Thanks, Chip. We've got some good questions already in the chat, which I'm going to get to. I wanted to start with a couple that were sent to me actually before the meeting. One is whether DPS is going to be able to provide masks for students in person at the schools this year. And the second is there do we know what percentage of teachers and staff have been vaccinated in DPS?
Thank you, Mr. Bradford, for the two questions. The first one is easy. Yes, we're gonna provide masks to our students as well as our staff. We have enough in our storage. So, and we also have some special masks for students with disability and things of that nature. So we have enough in our storage for that. Percentage of teachers and students being vaccinated, unfortunately, we do not have it. And we're still working with our legal counsels. We did not feel comfortable to be able to ask our teachers whether or not they are vaccinated. And we got to keep in mind when teachers became when teachers they were ready to be vaccinated, there were some of our teachers really left the county. They went to other places to get vaccines. And we don't have those numbers even when we have to check with our local health departments. So the only way we're going to be able to find out if we have to ask our teachers to be able to provide it to us. So we have not got to that point. We do not have it. We don't either. We don't have data when it comes to how many students been vaccinated. But I think talking with our health departments, they can give us the number from those, the one that are 12 to 18, how many of them are vaccinated. And I have a number, but cannot recall it correctly at this point. So that's number, we can have it, but I don't have the really accurate number to provide you at this point.
If I could add to that, we've been very active in partnering with community organizations to not only get the word out about vaccination events, but we've supported some of those on our school sites. We participated with War for Life and Chapel Hill Pediatrics hosting vaccination clinics at Hillside High School, where we had great turnout for students ages 12 to 17. And that is an area where our community, we really need to encourage our students that are eligible to have it. My wife is a teacher at Jordan. My wife and I volunteered at those vaccine clinics. When the vaccines come out, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, they have to be kept super cold for storage. When they bring them out and they're getting ready to prepare them for administration, you actually have to warm the bottles in your hands to bring them up to temperature for where it's safe to administer them. You know, holding the sealed bottles. Holding those sealed bottles in my hands felt like I was holding life itself in them. The vaccinations, even in the face of the Delta variant, vaccinations are absolutely critical to helping our community reduce the spread of COVID and helping people who get infected survive the disease or avoid hospitalization. So we are continuing to share information about vaccination clinics as they come forward. We will continue to work with the health department and other partners. And we are supporting the Back to School Bash that the Durham County Department of Public Health is holding on this Friday, August 20th, at the Durham County Memorial Stadium from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're not only giving kids haircuts and handing out school supplies and having various Durham County agencies with an interest in back to school set up in tents on the football field, but the health department will be holding a vaccination clinic there as well. And we welcome all of our students and any adults they care to bring with them to that event.
Thanks for mentioning that, Chip. If you want to get some specifics about that event on Friday at Memorial Stadium, you can go to the DCIA.org homepage, and on our calendar on the left, you'll see that on the calendar for this Friday, the 20th, and you can click on that to get details. So we're very pleased about our partners who are doing that and who've been doing great vaccine events in the community, at congregations, at neighborhood sites, at parks. So that's very helpful. A follow-up on Dr. Mubenga, we've been hearing in the news about some schools that are requiring vaccination among high school students who are participating in athletics, for instance, who are electing to participate in some voluntary programs. And I'm interested if that is if that is something that has come up for discussion in your office and with the school board.
Thank you for that particular question. We presented to our board last Thursday our requirements as far as student returning. But when it comes to vaccination, that was not a part of the conversation. We heard probably another school district yesterday. If I recall, Orange County, they made a call. We're still talking with our board members. We may get to that point in a very near future, but at this point, we have not made that as a requirement yet. So, but all our athletes, they are required to be masking when they participate in sports indoor, when they're outside, when they're at the sideline, they're also supposed to be masking as well. But as far as vaccination mandates, we have not got to that point yet, but we are strongly encouraging our families to make sure to take advantage of vaccinations. But if we're gonna open up schools, I understand that we have to be proactive, but my brief response to you, we have not arrived to that point yet.
Thanks. And I know that it's not, you're not a representative of the Durham Association of Educators, Chip. It sounds like you've got someone in the family who might be connected with that. Do either of you know that what kind of public posture statement our local Association of Educators has taken with regard to vaccinations and testing?
Not at this time, as far as a public statement regarding like mandatory. They have been, DAE have been strong partners in advocating for vaccinations. They were part of the vanguard that probably helped accelerate teachers to a higher priority in the state's vaccine priority. So we know that they care very much about vaccinations and taking all measures that we possibly can to reduce the spread.
Thanks, that's great. One of our attenders from Church World Service, a partner organization supporting and assisting refugees in the community, points out that hi there, that most of their refugee participants are not technically skilled for online learning with their kids. And so he's asking if there are there going to be additional support resources available to those parents if their kids continue to do remote learning?
Oh, thank you for that question. I think if you heard my remarks at the beginning, I knew remote learning was not really an ideal situation for all our students. We have a high number of our students that really struggle, and some of them even give up in that process. So we're gonna do our due diligence to make sure that we're gonna keep our schools safe, which we're gonna really ask for collaboration from everybody in the community to all our stakeholders, so we can keep our schools safe, then be able to keep it open for students like some of those refugees. You may give them a computer, you may give them a hotspot. Still, that's not going to be sufficient for learning to take place. I think the best course of action is for our school to be open. But if we get to the point where we have to require everyone to be remote learning, we have a multi-language center with staff that will be able to be supporting our refugees and our students that are really coming recently in the country to be able to be acclimated in our school system and be able to get all the supports they need, so they will be able to navigate that remote learning. But we have not got to that point, and we hope we will not get to that point this year.
Following up on that, you brought up something that we are also continually hearing some about is the need for remedial support for students who have fallen behind during the pandemic or simply fell completely off the radar and out of contact with the school system during the pandemic. What kind of conversations and planning have you been having with your staff and teachers and principals about addressing the remedial needs to catch students up from disconnection during the pandemic?
That's an excellent question. Again, we are very grateful with all the support from federal government, that $150 million that we've been able to receive, which is going to go for 3 years. The learning gap that our students are going to experience is going to take us a good 2 or 3 years before we can close those gaps. We should not expect that they're going to be a quick silver bullet that in a year we should be able to address that deficiency that was caused by the pandemic. With that in mind, that's how we started with our summer programming. In the past, we used to have 500, 800. This time, we had roughly about 7,000 students. So we started addressing those learning gaps during the summer programming. In addition to that, we added roughly about 200 positions in our district with the federal funds, with needs that need to be addressed academically, social, as well as emotional needs. We have staff that were able to be employed just to be able to address those gaps for the next 3 years. Those positions are going to be there for the next 3 years. Also, we're also making some funds available, roughly about $30 million, that schools, they're going to apply for it based on the school improvement needs that they're going to have on how to address those learning loss during the pandemic. And the fund is going to be available for the next 3 years, be able to get our students to be able to catch up due to the loss that they've been able to experience during the pandemic. So we have, beside additional support with staffing, they're going to be remediation during the day, they're going to be remediation after schools. And then at some points, we may get to the point where we may open our campuses on Saturday. If I have to take that to our board to be able to change the policy so that our students will be able to benefit from those Saturday academy. But we're tracking data, we're monitoring data to see how we're coming short and what additional support or strategy we can put in place to address those learning loss. But we're not going to close those gaps in a year. It's going to take us a good 2 or 3 years to be able to get back where we're supposed to be.
Thank you for that. I did just post in the chat, notice that we've been publicizing from DPS about employment for before and after school community education programs, and as well as for bus drivers. So please share that. And it's good to hear about the staff expansion that the additional funding is helping to support to try to catch students up. That's great. And the yes, we also had a question. I think what's intended is there any special outreach that is specifically not just targeting students who were struggling with the virtual ed, but who weren't even able to participate in virtual education last year, who became just disconnected from the learning activities. I think that's what Katushka was getting at. Is that what you're meaning, Katushka? Feel free to unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay. So yes, that has arisen some discussions as a particular point of concern, knowing that there is not just going to be, as we were talking about, catch-up work for a lot of students to do, but especially those who really fell out of all learning activities last year.
Yes, we have a wonderful team of social workers. a DPS that's been working really hard, following up with those students, going to their families, and try to bring them back on campus. And we have faced this phenomenon of some of our students with this pandemic. They got to the point where they start getting employment, full-time employment. Some of their families, they have to rely on them to be able to bring income. And some of those kids, was really hard to be able to bring them back, to re-engage them. And we're working on the different strategies, how we can even be able to provide flexible scheduling, evening schools, as well as online, so that they can continue employment if that's the choice, to feed their families, and at the same time continue with the education. Also we're able to add additional position, new position, what we call student coaching. So we have those student coaches that's working with our, especially our high school students, to be able to engage them, to be able to be acclimated back again in their learning. So I think those additional positions is going to be able to help us to address the needs of those students. And I'll say this, even though we're going through this pandemic, our social workers, as well as our school counselors, they've worked so hard, making sure that those students are really catching up with their work, and especially those seniors. And we have some outstanding numbers that we'll be presenting to our board in the next few weeks. And our graduation rate is pretty much the highest ever. And that was really the work of our social workers and our high school principals, as well as our school counselors. So we were working really hard in the middle of this pandemic. So we're having additional supports to make sure that our students are not falling behind, and that they will be able to come back, and those who decided to drop out.
Dr. Mubenga, I think our Assistant Superintendent for Research and Accountability would be very angry with me if I didn't say that that statement was preliminary, and everybody's got a nice little surprise here, but please keep it to yourselves for now. We'll be announcing it soon.
We will look forward to celebrating good news that becomes public soon. Thank you. Appreciate that. That unofficial preliminary celebration. The one follow-up to that, I mean, it's great news that you've got the resources to hire these additional coaches, that you're and that you have funds for additional teachers for your online academy, if you can recruit them. It sounds like you've got some recruitment to do for the Ignite Academy, and if you do have to expand to Saturday classes, a question's risen: is that something that would be able to be covered with current teaching staff, or would you be recruiting and hiring additional teachers and tutors for Saturday programs?
I think we're going to be able to recruit the same teachers that we have and be able to compensate them more. As a matter of fact, they work 10 months during the summer. We're very fortunate. We had over 800 teachers that work during the summer. In the past, we'll pay $25 an hour. But due to this pandemic, also with extra fund that we received from the federal government, so we're paying our teacher $40 an hour. So that was really helpful, because they deserve every penny that we can fund. So the reactions was really positive. We had about 800 teachers during the summer. And if we have to open Saturday Academy, I think we're going to use the same way of motivating our current staff to be able to work with our students.
Good to know. Thank you. We've had Jim Keaton speak occasionally over the last few years about the student nutrition program with our folks, and the expansion of reach of that program for students in Durham Public Schools. One cause of concern has been that during the pandemic, participation in utilization of the free and reduced price lunch and breakfast programs has went down. And the question, even though the need was still there, simply access to it was a struggle for our systems to create without in-person learning going on. I guess the question from that is, are we anticipating any adverse drop in funding for school nutrition as a consequence of that this year, or not?
No, I think we are really in a better position now, now that we're coming back in person. The way we get funding is based on reimbursement, how many meals students are eating. Now that we are back in person, we're going to have a lot of students that's going through the lines and getting foods. That's how we're going to get our reimbursement. So we're feeling pretty good when it comes to our school nutrition program. The only concern I may have will be probably the students that are going to be in Ignite. We don't have really this leverage to be able to feed those students, 750 students that will be taking classes online. But at the bulk of our students, 31,000 or more that will be on campus, I think that's going to help our school nutrition reimbursement as well. So we are in good.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear. Just want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please enter it in the chat for Superintendent Mubenga. We'd love to address any other questions that you might have. It sounds like the plan for responding to families who are concerned enough about the risk of infection spread to want to move their children from in-person to virtual learning, that's going to be accessible available through the Ignite Online Academy. Have you all already done some forecasting and planning about at what point you would need to move beyond that structure to accommodate remote learning? What's the ceiling for participation in the Ignite Online Academy before you have to go to some other model or instrument for accommodating remote learning?
So for Ignite Academy, the deadline for enrollment has already passed. And we have been really working with our families about the deadline. They were fully aware of that. We hope with all the protocols that we have in place that our staff as well as our students will be safe as we'll continue with this in-person learning. But at any point, if with the Delta variant and this virus itself, if we're gonna be at a point where we have to retrieve and come up with different options, I think we have the capability with our hotspot as well as our technology to make remote learning work. But I'll say this, we're gonna go one day at a time. I do not really wanna predict us really going back to remote learning. As I said before, it was not really a pleasant experience for majority of our students. And again, if we're gonna get to that point, we have the capability to be able to handle remote learning.
If I could follow up, there is a bill in a conference committee at the legislature right now that would put a cap on the number of days that students could be in remote learning and a cap on the number of students that could enroll in remote learning. This was legislation that went to conference back in June. It was before Delta. We don't know where the state will go in the end if Delta changes any of their perspectives. But certainly going into this year, and certainly since last March, the governor and the legislature and the State Board of Education have been fairly unified in the need for students to be back in school with precautions. And they would not encourage districts to go remote, and the legislation that's coming forward, if it passes, would prevent that. How the landscape may change with Delta is still up in the air. So the decision is not entirely Durham Public Schools' to make. We are committed to following the state Strong Schools Toolkit, universal masking, protecting all of our students and staff to the best of our ability while encouraging vaccinations. And then we will make the right call to protect our students and staff within the guardrails that the state legislature and the state board give us.
And if I can piggyback from Mr. Sadef, that cap was pretty much 5 days. So you cannot have more than 5 remote days. Those two, there's a House bill there. If I recall, it was probably 640, then Senate bill out there. So that's it's just a matter of them to push it through. So it's not just up to our local school board to make that final decision. So there are a lot of factors out there that the state legislatures are watching as well.
Sure. I think Chip, you offered a you said something there, I think that is an answer to a clarifying question we had about whether there is in fact a mask mandate DPS for students and staff. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A student or staff member can request a medical exemption, but that's very specific, a medical exemption and it's not just going to be granted automatically. It would have to be reviewed. We know that masks reduce the spread, and we are committed to that. We have seen, I have seen with my own eyes at the opening of year-round school that most of our students get it. They've become accustomed to wearing masks, and our teachers help and staff help enforce mask discipline. It's not perfect, and sometimes there are close contacts among people who did not keep their masks on, and they quarantine for their and other students' protection in that off time. But we're not afraid of masks around here.
All right. Well, that's good, because I think Durhamites are very, very realistic and as overall about the importance of that. As a follow-up, so I understood your clarification that there is no vaccination mandate for students or staff at this point. We've had another follow-up question to that. For volunteers, such as parents and other community members coming into schools to volunteer, has there been discussion or decision about a vaccination requirement for them?
Yes, so there have been a conversation regarding volunteers, but we at this point still not requiring masking. With our volunteers, we really want to make sure that our principals, they're gonna get clear guidance. We're not just gonna let anyone come to our buildings unless you're doing professional development. We have some vendors that we have to bring in our schools. We have had really heated debates during our last board meeting, whether or not volunteers will be required. And I'll say this, it's just a matter of a week or two before we can call another special meeting or have another regular meeting to change the course of those mandates. But at this point, we are not requiring. And I'll say this to our public, that we're not just going to open up our building to any person just to come in. And even for field trip, we're gonna be very, very careful to be able to schedule those as well.
So no vaccination requirement, but a masking requirement for volunteers at present.
That's
got
correct.
it. Well, thank you.
Limited access.
And limited access.
Whether providing professional development or working specifically on student support on a school-related project.
Very helpful. Thank you for that. Yes, and it is given the changing circumstances by the day and the week. There's yes, I think we're all aware that things could change and we could be in a very different place in another month. I'm still hoping that I'm seeing the window of hope for some in-person events DCIA was planning for October start to close, because we're still hoping that this surge will be over sooner rather than later, but it is not headed that way right now. Follow-up question about field trips specifically. In addition to masking, are there other additional safety measures planned for student groups and staff going on field trips?
Yes, we have North Carolina schools toolkit protocol that we have to follow throughout North Carolina. And anytime we have to go to other places, especially some of our students, they have to go to places even to be able to meet requirement for their classes and all that. We're gonna make sure that those additional steps, in addition to masking, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna follow those protocol to protect all our students.
All right, well, thank you. Anybody else have additional questions at this point for Superintendent Mubenga? If not, I will express our thanks on behalf of DCIA for you joining us here this morning and or this afternoon rather, and giving us your updates and responding to our questions in this changing environment here. We pray the best for the new academic year for our students and for the teachers and staff at DPS. We're pray that this will be an easier, less challenging year than last year was, and that the students will be successful in all their endeavors with you. Thank you for the work that you and your staff have been doing. And if at any point we can help with publicizing updates, information for families in the community, we're happy to help with that. Please let us know. And we hope that everything goes well for our students in the coming year. Thanks again, Dr. Mubenga. Chip, thank you for joining us. And for our participants, thank you very much for attending today. Next month, we have a double scoop of Zoom events for our constituency and the community. We return to our Building Beloved Community anti-racism relationships, stories and testimonies of faith communities of different races that have built relationships and partnerships. On Tuesday, September 21st, we will be hearing from members of Mount Calvary United Church of Christ and Pilgrim United Church of Christ about their relationship over the years and how they have developed their work of dialogue and interracial relationship. And then the following Tuesday, on September 28th, we'll hear from the pastors of St. Joseph AME Church and St. Paul's Lutheran Church about the work of dialogue and relationship building that they and members of their churches did over the past year after the death of George Floyd. So we will be posting those Zoom information in our emails going out, and hope to have you all attend those and invite your friends and fellow congregants and neighbors to join us for those Zoom events at 12 noon on September 21st and September 28th. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed day and stay safe and healthy.